done a top 10 in a while. Yeah, let's do it. Hello everyone, this is Alex and welcome to Burtonland, where we discuss all things Tim Burton. And yeah, like I said, I've not done a top 10 in a while, and funny enough, after finally going to the exhibition of the world of Tim Burton and reading through the designing worlds that I bought there, if you want to check that video out, go right ahead, it got me thinking more about Tim Burton the person. And that I've gone through a couple of video essays going through more from the production and a little bit of his time at Disney, but I haven't really gone too much about his personal life or, the things that have actually from his life have gone into his films. So I thought it'd be interesting to do a top 10 Tim Burton Easter eggs. And what I mean by that is there are specific moments in his films that directly correlate with certain things to his life. Now, I'm not talking about like the sort of themes and motifs. That'll probably be its own top 10 that I'm thinking about doing. I'm talking about little moments in his movies that make me think of something that he has said in an interview or is evidenced by something that's related to his life and whatever. So this is more sort of like little snippets here and there, and it might actually make you learn something more about the man behind the camera. So join me as we look at the top 10 Tim Burton Easter eggs. Enjoy.
Every home is their own Wonderland. Sometimes people can take their own home to their art. This could be said about Burton's house and Alice in Wonderland. While living in their adjoined houses, Helena Bonham Carter mentioned that their respective houses were polar opposites, and when entering Tim's house, it was like entering Wonderland, only with alien lights and skeletons. The homes were described as a labyrinth where guests and even the owners themselves would get lost. Even post-breakup, when Burton left Bonham Carter with the two houses and found a new home in London, the house was designed and built originally for mathematician William Garnett that was inspired by Lewis Carroll's poem The Jabberwocky. General Ortega even confirmed that when you enter his new home, the Red Queen's throne is one of the first things you see. But it's not just Wonderland, as due to Burton's love of dinosaurs for his Oxfordshire house, he bought 20-foot dinosaur sculptures for his garden. This may remind you of the dinosaurs from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the topiary from Edward Scissorhands, and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Just goes to show, some ideas can come from your own home. Wednesday's revenge on the water polo team. We all remember the opening scene to season 1 where Wednesday Addams dumps piranhas in the pool to defend her brother Pugsley from the water polo team. It really set the tone for the series, and to me it looked like it came straight from a drawing of Burton, as well as something I could see Charles Addams drawing himself. However, this may have a connection to Burton's own high school days, as he was on the water polo team. The question is, was this meant to showcase his real opinions on being on the team, or just a little nod to his high school days? Whatever the case, I'm sure he knew what it was like walking through the hallways with others staring at him, deeming as weird. Therapist joke from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. As many are aware, Burton's adaptation of Roald Dahl's classic did not end where the book ends, with Charlie declining Willy Wonka's offer to take over the chocolate factory, as it would mean never seeing his family again. Wonka appears incredibly shocked that it affects his candy sales, while the Bucket family appear to be making slow progress out of their poverty. There's a scene where Wonka is having a therapy session with an Oompa Loompa who says absolutely nothing, but Wonka comes to the solution by just talking it out himself. It's a cute joke, but it may have been a little bit honest. Burton has admitted to seeing a few therapists, and one in particular stood out because he didn't talk. I never spoke to anyone, so I found the perfect therapist, who just sat there for an hour and didn't speak. It was like being in any other relationship. I didn't say a word. He checked his watch every now and then. Weird. We didn't say anything to each other. So maybe this little moment was more of a memory from Burton's subconscious, and how silence can truly be golden. Burton's own playlist. Picking certain songs for a movie may be difficult than it seems, so why not have a look at your own playlist? For the climax of Beetlejuice, we of course needed a big wedding scene, and even more, have a dance number. Burton only had one song in mind, being one of his favourites, Richard Harris's MacArthur's Park, due to how operatic it sounded. Helped that it was all over the place, and it supported with the various side stories going on and all the characters colliding in this one scene. Another favourite song that was chosen was for Dark Shadows, as Alice Cooper made an appearance at the Collins' Happening. The song Ballad of Dwight Frite was used, being one of Burton's and Johnny Depp's favourite, plus it helped as it blended with the theme of vampires. Remember, Dwight Frite was the actor who played Renfield in Bela Lugosi's Dracula, who was sent to an asylum, which correlates with Victoria Winter's backstory. But the main artist that was used was Tom Jones in both Edward Scissorhands and Mars Attacks, with the singer casted in the latter. Turns out Tom Jones was the only music that Burton's suburban neighbourhood seemed to enjoy, and thankfully he enjoyed it as well. So much so that in 2010, Tim and Helena went to an auction charity event, which included one of the singer's rings. The couple kept trying to outbid each other for it. Burton won in the end with a bid of £10,000, but ended up giving the ring to Helena. Who knows what other favourite songs may appear in future films? Keep it in the family. Burton has a habit of casting his girlfriends in his movies, but what about the rest of his family? Well, since the birth of both his children, they have appeared in almost all of his films. First, Billy appeared in both Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Sweeney Todd, and then was accompanied by his sister Nell in Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows, Big Eyes, and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Nell went solo for cameo in Beetlejuice. Now you might be wondering, why did he not give them any lines? Well, this is due to the fact that both Tim and Helena does not want their children to be in the world of Hollywood, so did not give them any speaking roles. However, due to the extremely busy schedule of being a film director, Burton would bring his kids to set and allow a cameo. But maybe due to the fact that kids can get bored on the set, to the point that playing dead children in Miss Peregrine, they were very excited about, according to Burton. Sounds like something that Tim Burton's children would say. And other animals. So it turns out it's not just his children that cameos in his movies, but his pets as well. We all know his relationship with childhood dogs featuring in many of his films, including Frankenweenie, Corpse Bride, and Nightmare Before Christmas, so it's no surprise that his real-life pets would get a cameo in his films. First was Poppy, that was shown in Mars Attacks. Yes, the iconic image of Sarah Jessica Parker's head on a chihuahua's body was based around Burton's own dog. Fun fact, she was actually found in a cage on the streets when Burton was in Tokyo and so was adopted. The second is Levi, and while it's not been confirmed, I'm convinced that she is featured in Wednesday, walking past the little Wednesday, walking her pet scorpion. I'm almost convinced that Levi also cameoed in Beetlejuice during the climax. As Beetlejuice reflects on his past loves, including Dolores and Lydia, there was also a dog identical to Burton's current pet. And a little cameo is featured in one of the pets turned monsters in Frankenweenie. Toshiaki accidentally creates a Godzilla-esque turtle named Shelley, and many have speculated that she was named this after the author of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. This may be true, but the other reason is because it was the name of Burton's son's turtle. Just goes to show that the love of pets works its way in his films, and not just to resurrect them from the dead. Burton did have a cameo in Nightmare Before Christmas, after all. Many Nightmare Before Christmas fans know that there is a deleted scene where the vampires are playing ice hockey, but instead of a pumpkin, it was originally meant to be the head of Tim Burton. But that idea was scrapped. But he may have ended up in the movie if you look a little closer. Everyone remembers the first house Jack visits on Christmas Eve to deliver presents, and that the first kid receives a shrunken head, starting the true Nightmare Before Christmas. Never fails to make me laugh, but there is more to this kid than meets the eye. Now, this is a total theory, but hear me out. I think this kid may be Tim Burton as a cameo, and I think it may have to do with that shrunken head. There's a family picture of Burton with his mom, his family dogs, and his younger brother, Daniel, who was holding a shrunken head. The director confirmed that he'd bought the head, but his brother took it off from him. Another photograph of Burton dressed as a skeleton for Halloween that his mother made. Many have stated that this costume gave inspiration to the design of Jack Skellington. You may be thinking this might be a bit of a stretch, but when looking at Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise, whenever this particular kid is included, his name is Timmy. So maybe he did get a cameo after all. Ode to a Grandmother. Many Burton fans know that during his childhood he ended up moving to live with his grandmother before renting his own apartment as a teenager due to his estranged relationship with his parents. While he admitted that he did not know much about who his parents really were, he claimed that it was due to the suburban surroundings and wanted to become the perfect American family, and he believes that they had felt the pressure. However, as this was causing a rift between the family, Burton was much closer to his grandmother, who encouraged his artistic side and was much more supportive. We see this grandparent-grandchild dynamic in many of his films, including Charlie and Grandpa Joe, Jake and his grandfather and Miss Peregrine, Astrid and Delia getting on better than with her mother Lydia in Beetlejuice, and even elderly Kim telling her granddaughter the story of Edward Scissorhands. However, the biggest example is from Mars Attacks with Richie and his grandma, due to the fact that they're the only ones who look out for each other, unlike the rest of their family. And also discovering how to destroy the Martians when they invade Earth. But maybe there's a closer link to Burton's own grandmother in this particular relationship. In an interview, when asked about moving in with his grandmother, he mentions that she loved watching Hee Haw and the Lawrence Welk Show. Well, as Richie is taking his grandmother to her room in the care home, they pass the main seating area where the other residents are watching the Lawrence Welk Show. Maybe this is a little tribute to Burton's grandmother, who, as he confirmed, made her home a sanctuary for him and allowed him to be who he was, and that it was okay to be different. Teach your students well. As many have pointed out, Victor's science teacher from Frankenweenie is modelled after Burton's childhood hero, Vincent Price. But there's more than meets the eye. As Burton pointed out, his full-length stop-motion feature was a memory piece, reflecting on his upbringing in Burbank, including the neighbourhood, his relationship with his dog, the kids he remembered from school, and the teachers. Mr. Ostrowski inspires Victor by encouraging his passion for science and sees the potential he has compared to others, including his parents. So it makes sense that he would look like the iconic horror director, but it may have been inspired by another. Burton has remembered that he had one teacher in high school who encouraged him to embrace his individuality, and that was his art teacher, Mrs. Adams. She was interested in his drawing style and was intrigued on what he would create next, so much so that she gave him his first lesson in stop-motion animation. In an interview with the teacher, who clearly remembers teenage Burton, he was very quiet, but he drew the most wonderful, fanciful figures you could ever imagine. Instead of getting into trouble, he would just take his pen and be lost in his drawings. The proud teacher kept up with his movies and even turned up at the Tim Burton exhibition when it came to Los Angeles. That was a real joy to see her. She surprised me, which was amazing. It was really nice to see her after all those years, says Burton at the event. Hopefully she saw Frankenweenie and could see that quiet teenager drawing weird creatures paid a little tribute to her, as she clearly had an effect all these years later. Now, before we go on to number 1, here are some honourable mentions. Braces that Wonka wears. When we journey back to Willy Wonka's childhood, we see that he grew up with braces around his head. Part of this was due to Burton having similar braces as a child. I remember getting them tightened was like somebody turning screws in your head. When you have this ugly looking thing on your head and you already feel like an outsider. Own handwriting. When you want something written, might as well do it yourself. So, for the notes the Joker leaves for Vicky Vale in Batman and Norther Winslow's poem in Big Fish were written by Burton himself. Proud parents after all. This definitely deserves to be number 1, as it's definitely the most emotional one on the list. I know many weren't a fan of showing Wonka's childhood and his relationship with his father, but this scene, where Charlie sees all the newspaper clippings at the factory on the wall of his father's home, really changes this, and it is based on a real event Burton experienced. I've already mentioned that his relationship with his parents was alienating, and when his father passed away in 2000, the best way Burton could express the emotions of grief was through the film Big Fish. But what about his mother, who died in 2002? When he went to visit her, and he saw posters of his films in her house, along with scrapbooks of newspaper clippings, magazines relating to his projects, it was quite horrifically touching in a way. We couldn't really connect, but at the same time, she was certainly following what I was doing. After their passing, Burton has admitted he could understand them discovering who they were and realising they probably felt as trapped in Burbank as he was, and saw that maybe they were outsiders as much as he was. However, when asked if he was able to go back and change anything, his answer would always be no. I felt quite miserable in a lot of ways and depressed, but no, I wouldn't change that, because it's something that makes you who you are. I don't think I would change anything, really, even though if you'd asked me back then, I would have changed every single thing.
So there you go. Those are my top 10 Tim Burton Easter eggs, and maybe you might have actually learned something about these little moments, and maybe the next time you see them, you might look at them just a little differently. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you back in Burtonland soon.